Okay, imagine stumbling upon an ancient secret so profoundly impossible it literally shatters everything we thought we knew about the dawn of human civilization. In this explainer, we're unpacking a massive archaeological anomaly that sat totally hidden under Turkish soil for over 10 millennia. We're talking about a site that completely defies logic, rewrites our history books, and shows us a spectacular creative explosion from a time when humanity was supposedly just barely surviving. To really grasp just how earth-shattering this discovery is, we've got to start with a massive paradox. For over a century, the golden rule of human history was super simple. First, our ancestors learned to farm. Then, they settled down. And only after their bellies were full and their societies were established did they finally have the free time to dream up complex religions and build massive temples. But what if we had that completely backward? What if the intense, burning desire to worship and gather together is actually what forced humanity to invent farming in the first place?
Let's dive right into part 1, the impossible discovery.
Back in 1994, an archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt noticed some misclassified artifacts in a local museum, which sent him out to investigate an obscure, dusty hill known as Göbekli Tepe. And what he uncovered there brilliantly illustrates just how mind-bendingly old this place is. We always think of Stonehenge and the Great Pyramids of Egypt as the absolute ultimate ancient marvels, right? Well, Göbekli Tepe was constructed around 10,000 BC, basically right as the last ice age was ending. That means it predates Stonehenge by roughly 7,000 years. Let that sink in. To the people who built Stonehenge, Göbekli Tepe was already ancient, forgotten history.
But it's not just the age that's shocking. It's the sheer, unbelievable physical scale of the place. We're talking about a sprawling complex covering roughly 25 acres. Ground-penetrating radar shows there are at least 20 massive stone circles buried out there. And the monoliths themselves? They're gigantic. We're looking at intricately carved, T-shaped pillars standing up to 5 meters. That's over 15 feet tall. This wasn't just some minor makeshift gathering spot in the woods. This was a colossal, highly coordinated architectural marvel.
Which brings us to part 2, monuments of the hunters.
Now, basic logic dictates that building a monument of this magnitude would absolutely require a massive, settled agricultural society just to organize the labor, right? Wrong. The wildest thing about these ruins is the sheer lack of everyday human life. As archaeologists dug down into these enclosures, they found 0 ovens, 0 fire pits, and absolutely no trace of domestic life. Even more telling, when experts analyzed the massive amounts of animal bones left over from feasts at the site, we're talking pigs, goats, gazelles, they were 100% wild. No domesticated animal variants whatsoever. Only wild plant seeds. So this jaw-dropping, monumental site was constructed entirely by nomadic hunter-gatherers. People who, by the way, hadn't even invented pottery yet.
So the crucial takeaway here is the staggering level of organization this must have required. Klaus Schmidt originally hypothesized it would have taken a highly organized labor force of up to 500 people just to quarry, move, and stand up a single one of these 20-ton stones. And remember, they were using nothing but hand tools and sheer human will. Just try to wrap your head around the incredible logistical support networks and the intense social cohesion you'd need to bring hundreds of nomadic hunters together for one singular monumental purpose.
Let's move to part 3, a sanctuary of beasts.
To really get a glimpse into the minds of these ancient builders, we have to look closely at their intense artwork. Because this wasn't just a building, it was a sprawling stone canvas for their deepest beliefs. The T-shaped pillars are completely covered in breathtaking and honestly sometimes terrifying high-relief carvings. You've got nightmarish guardians, foxes with strange snake-like appendages, and these feral boars bearing their teeth. And unlike slightly later agricultural societies that constantly depicted female earth mothers or fertility figurines, Göbekli Tepe is entirely devoid of them. It's a fierce, male-dominated, wildly ferocious landscape built by hunters. And the specific animals they chose to carve weren't just random decorations. They hint at an incredibly elaborate mythology that's entirely lost to us. You see foxes darting across the stones, which in a lot of ancient cultures are deeply linked to shamanic shape-shifting rituals and wisdom. Vultures are super prominent too, creatures that are almost universally associated with the realm of the dead and sky burials. And then of course the snakes, which are classic symbols of the underworld. Basically, this sanctuary was a massive library of stone, permanently recording the fables and the spiritual lore of a deeply complex people.
And the artistry they used to build the sanctuary literally defies their technological era.
Down in the sunken enclosures, archaeologists uncovered terrazzo floors. If you don't know, terrazzo is this beautifully smooth, luxurious surface laboriously created by burning lime and clay, layer after layer after layer. Finding this highly advanced, incredibly time-consuming construction technique 12,000 years ago is just mind-blowing. It tells us that these ancient builders treated this sacred space with the utmost reverence and just unbelievable skill.
Now for part 4. Religion before agriculture. This brings us to the absolute intellectual climax of this explainer, because if a bunch of hunter-gatherers could build something so magnificent, it forces us to completely flip the historical paradigm on its head. The old model, the one we all learned in school, insisted that economic need, meaning the invention of farming, sparked settlements, which finally gave people the bandwidth to develop religion and monumental architecture. But Göbekli Tepe shows us the exact opposite. The new model suggests that a burning desire for shared religion and communal rituals is actually what led humans to settle temporarily, and that need to gather in huge numbers is what necessitated the invention of farming to sustain those massive religious festivals.
This directly echoes a really brilliant theory proposed by French scholar Jacques Covin back in the 1990s, way before Göbekli Tepe was even fully understood. He called it the birth of the gods. Covin argued that humans didn't start farming just because they were hungry or because the climate changed. He believed a profound revolution in the human psyche had to happen first, a massive shift in shared symbolism. Basically, to become a farmer, humanity first had to undergo a cognitive explosion, dreaming up a shared ideology and divine beings that united them.
And we can see exactly how that psychological revolution played out practically on the ground. Think of it as a three-step process. First, you've got these nomadic clans gathering at Göbekli Tepe for massive religious festivals. Second, suddenly they need a massive food surplus to feed the hundreds of people laboring to carve and erect these 20-ton pillars. And third, that immense crushing pressure to feed the faithful may have directly led to early experimentations with domesticating wild grains like the einkorn wheat that grows naturally in the surrounding mountains. Quite literally, the sheer effort of building the temple forced the invention of the farm.
So why does all of this matter to us today? Well, it means the very bedrock of our modern civilization, our towns, our agriculture, our hierarchical societies, might not have been born out of simple economic survival. Instead, civilization itself may have been born out of our ancestors' desperate desire to connect, to share incredible stories, and to worship together. It looks like ideology and art were the true catalysts for human progress.
Which takes us to our final section, Part 5, the end of an era.
But like all great empires and epochs, this magnificent era eventually came to a sudden and highly mysterious end. Sometime around 8000 BC, the site didn't just slowly fall into ruin or get naturally covered up by blowing wind and sand. No, it was intentionally, deliberately buried. The ancient people engaged in what archaeologists actually call a house-closing ritual. They meticulously backfilled the enclosures, completely entombing those great stone circles under 3 meters of earth and refuse, consigning their magnificent temple to total oblivion.
But why? Why meticulously bury your own most sacred site? Well, the prevailing theory is that as these people fully mastered agriculture and became completely sedentary, their entire worldview changed. The fierce, feral, animalistic rituals of the roving hunter simply lost their meaning to a settled society of farmers. Those towering T-shaped pillars just weren't relevant to their new reality anymore. Göbekli Tepe basically became an obsolete monument of elder days, respectfully put to rest as they marched forward into a new agricultural dawn. I want to leave you with this one final, provocative thought. Did the stories of this place completely die beneath the dirt? Thousands of years later, when the ancient Sumerians invented writing, they recorded myths of a sacred mountain called Duku. It was said to be the home of their ancient gods, and interestingly, they located it exactly in the hilly regions near Göbekli Tepe. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Did the shadow of these massive stone pillars and that original creative explosion they represent somehow survive in the whispered myths of humanity for thousands of years? If nothing else, it's a testament to the fact that our ancient ancestors were every bit our intellectual equals, driven by the exact same awe, creativity, and deep need for community that defines us today.